today I'm going to talk to you about conditioning with goats and understanding what it takes to get ready, a pack goat ready for the trail. So first off, let's talk about kind of their health. One of the things that happens when they come out of winter is that it's their hardest time of year. And when spring hits, these guys, especially if they're not fully grown yet, are in full growth mode. So these guys are springing up in the spring, and so it requires a lot of demands on their body to grow. Now, if they're full grown and you're conditioning, this is not as much a concern, but it still is, because they often come, even older goats, out of winter not faring so well. So the things you want to look for is things like rough coats, potential bald spots, dry coats, what we call singed coats. And remember, the soul to a goat's health is to pay attention to their fur and their tail. Nice pointy tail, not a fish tail, and a nice supple coat that's not quite a cat's fur, but not that far off. A really healthy goat is nice and soft to the touch. So first off, make sure in spring conditioning, you're starting off with a healthy goat. If you need to deworm, take poop samples. Never deworm, just arbitrarily take poop samples, and then find out what you're battling, and if you have to treat, and then also make sure multi-min shots are really valuable in the spring. Most goats are out there suffering from poor mineral, and so it's important to have solid mineral program to boost their health. And then the last thing is just kind of living conditions. Make sure that they're living in a clean environment, that they're not, when they rub their fur, they're not licking their fur with poop on it because it's so dirty, and that poopy goats aren't getting in the feeders and passing along parasites. Cleanliness is important for a goat's health. So that's kind of number one, make sure your goat's healthy. Number two is that you're going to want to make sure that you are starting out properly with the conditioning. And in the spring, one of the major things that you want to be conscientious of is that these guys have their winter coats still on. Oftentimes their undercoat is still in full-fledged in the spring, and it's like you or me trying to go out hike a mountain in a puffy coat. And when you have your puffy coat on, you know how hot it is. You can't do things that are athletic and or you overheat, and so do the goats. So if you're going to be doing spring conditioning, do it in the morning, do it in the evening, do it when it's cooler, when they're not in direct sunlight, and be conscientious of how hard you push them in the beginning. And remember that what you're trying to achieve with conditioning is really two things. It's not just that you're trying to get them a lung capacity, get their muscles in shape, getting them up in their production of oxygen and VO2 max. The same way you would train yourself to be an endurance athlete is the same way you train a goat. And so but the other component, and I'll talk more about that, the other component that people miss is that you also need to be having their hooves getting more tough. When you are hiking through the Rocky Mountain West, or most of the mountains, a fair amount of the trail is going to be on rock or on eroded granite, abrasive surfaces. And it takes a while for these goats that are standing in these muddy pens, especially in the spring when it's wet and damp and soft, that their feet are like the palms of our hands, rather than that roughened up good hoof bed that a goat needs to be able to walk 10 miles on a trail and rock. So remember, you're not just conditioning their bodies, you're toughening up their hooves. The other thing that I spoke about earlier to get more elaborate about is the different systems of conditioning. So the system I used back in the day was that I never this is when I was going hardcore. I was all in, I was goat packing constantly, and now I'm running a ranch. I'm trying to get your guys' gear to you and all the other things. Life has gotten busier, and so I don't do it at that level, and I don't have the time to do that conditioning at that level, so it forced me to find other ways to get goats in shape, and I'm going to share that with you. But the way I began is the most hardcore way to do it, which is I used to go on a 3-mile run with them once a week, year round. That way, they were never out of shape. They were always in good shape. Their hooves were always in good shape. And we would just piddle jog a little 500-foot climb on a trail, 3 miles, come back down once a week, and I never had a problem with goats being in condition. And then, of course, during packing season, I let the trail just keep them in shape and even get them in better shape. So that's what I would say is kind of the pinnacle way. The secondary way is the way that I developed into, which is you use the season to condition them. So when it comes around in spring, almost all of us out here out west or whatever have an opportunity to spring bear hunt. If that's not your thing and you're just a hiker, then you want to hike into those spots that you can go into in the spring that open up in lower elevations or are in creek bottoms, and you want to be running early season spots on the trail. And when I'm doing early season spots on the trail, number one, I make sure the trail's fairly easy because I don't want to crush them right out of the gate. And number two is I also limit mileage. And then the last thing is I limit loads. I do not load my goats heavy right out of the gate, and you shouldn't either. They're not ready for it. It's like you sitting around all winter being a couch potato and throwing a 50-pound pack on and trying to do, 7 or 8 miles on a steep climb. Those kind of things are the kinds of things that create things like joint injuries and those sorts of things when you're pushing hard, when your muscles and your tendons and everything aren't used to doing it. And it's the same for them. So temper your early season stuff. A lot of times early season, as I'm getting them in shape, the first couple of trips, I'll have one group of goats that packs one day and then another group of goats that packs another day. And so I'll leave them empty. Everybody will have saddles and I just shift loads. And if I got a goat that seems like they're pooping out, then I take that load off of him and I put it on another one. And I kind of baby step everybody into a base level of fitness. And by midsummer, 3-4 trips, they're in pretty darn good trail shape. And now they're ready for hunting season, but they're not in ultimate condition yet. They probably won't be till the end of hunting season when you're really doing serious miles. So my mileage to have really good shape, in shape goats is I really want about 100 to 200 miles during the summer before hunting season, and then in hunting season they get a couple hundred more and they're ready for it and they finish out their conditioning. By the end of the season, they have these big muscly shoulders, these narrow asses, their ribs are showing. I mean, these are in condition trail machines by that time, and they know how to throw around weight and all that good stuff. The other thing I want to mention in this conversation that I've been able to use that has been a massive blessing, but it's difficult to duplicate, but you can get creative maybe in your area and have a spring or summertime graze. And what I do is I use the mountain behind me, but this is my property. So I own kind of the ridge on that side to the ridge on that side, and we have a 1-mile trail that goes up the mountain. Now you might think that I walk that trail all the time. I don't. You got to remember, conditioning out of your home, making them work hard out of the home will end up being a difficult process eventually because they won't want to follow you because they know the route and they know they're going to go get their butts kicked, and they don't love that. The way to condition is you always have to be on unfamiliar territory. So as soon as you put them in a truck, I have a trail right over here. If I put them in a truck and I drove them 100 yards and we started over there, it's like we're on a whole nother planet for them and they're going to stick to me like glue. I also want to mention that if you keep in unfamiliar territory, you can condition them with a 4-wheeler, a mountain bike. You can get them to follow you even in a vehicle if that's what you need. Just make sure it's on a rough surface where their hooves are getting conditioned as well. You don't want to run them on dirt or just on dirt all the time. You want them on rocks. So that was another little sidelight that may be a helpful tip for a few of you. But what I do is I use this as my spring graze. And every day the packers go out on the mountain and they typewriter their way up to the top, and then they typewriter their way down to the bottom, and every day they're climbing that mountain and they're navigating that terrain. I don't have to trim their hooves. They're in like mid-season condition after a month on that mountain. And if you have something like that, that is a godsend. So that's kind of the subject of spring conditioning for your pack goats. I hope you find that helpful. Please remember, if you need help with babies, pack goats, gear, courses on learning how to raise goats and run pack goats, you can find all of that on PackGoats.com. Marc Warnke, the Goat Guy, signing out.